Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome. Today is Thursday. It's December 1st, 2022. My name is Jeremy. This is my first cup. Good morning, Nathan, Kelly, Liz, Brian, and all the rest of you, whether you're watching now or sometime into the future. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for joining me. As you can see, I'm in a hotel. I'm going to be in a hotel for a week. You're going to get used to this. We're going to see this for 8 days straight. And I don't know, I probably won't change the angle, but I'm here, and some of you know more details than others. I'm not making a big thing out about what I'm doing. I'm in a conference. We're just going to leave it at that. Good morning, Dennis. Good morning, Stacy. And Dennis was already thinking about this morning. He says, "Happy December, peeps, and happy 77th birthday, Superfoot Bill Wallace." Yeah, that's right. The man's 77. Good morning, left leg. Jay! Hard to believe. It's really hard to believe that he's that old, because if you hang around him, he doesn't act that old. If you train with him, he doesn't act that old. So the irony is he's, let's see, I don't know where he is, but he's like over there or something from where I am. He's not that far. But I'm not here to see him. How funny would it be if I bumped into him at a grocery store or something? He'd just look at me. He'd do that scrunchy face. Some of you know the scrunchy face he makes. That would be awesome. I would love that to happen. Good morning, Mark. Brian says, today marks the 1-year anniversary we moved into and slept in our house the first night. Oh, that's awesome. That's a great anniversary to celebrate. Kelly says, that's amazing. I want to be him when I grow up. We all do. We all do. I think there are a few people that I know that continue to have as much fun in life as Superfoot. So, yeah. It was a little over 7 years. I had just met him when he turned 70 just after I met him. I met him the summer of 2015, if I remember correctly. Like Jay says, I had a student that was 79. We never knew it because they did not act their age. I had a man start at 70, and he was deaf, and his joints were super stiff, and he had a ball. He had an absolute blast with everything that we did. Sometimes I'd shout at him. Sometimes I'd have to go over to him and like tap him on the shoulder. His name was Rod. Rod, that's not what we're doing. Look, we're kicking. You're punching. He's like, oh yeah. Dennis says he looked 27 the way he was kicking last night. He said he was feeling good, and he looked it. Dang, that's awesome. Stacy says, I feel like I'm 77. Oof. I think we've all been there. We all have days where we feel rough and stiff and like our body's failing us, but there's always another opportunity for another day to make it better, to do something, to move yourself forward a little bit. That's what 12 Months to Health was about. Yeah, and I'm working on what the next 12 things might be. So Kelly says, my oldest black belt is 71, so started around 68 with his wife, daughter, and granddaughters. They're all black belts. That's awesome. Brian starts Tai Chi tonight. And Dennis says, I'm older than Superfoot was when I met him. Ooh. Yeah, I believe it. I've said this before, I'll say it again, and I'll say it now, I guess, in honor of the man on his birthday. I believe we all have something that we could do better than anybody else, something that would truly be our destiny to do it. And if we did it, no one would ever argue that we are the authority, the expert, the best, whatever. But most of us never find it because we don't try enough different things. Most of us stumble through life. But once in a while, you find someone who found their calling, who is doing that thing that is theirs, and you know it when you see it. And Bill Wallace is a wonderful example. Nobody else could have done what he did and does better than him. I don't believe anybody could. And it says, I'm restarting 12 months again on January 1st. That's awesome. I'm curious what changes you've noticed. I had a difficult decision this morning because, so, um, without going into super detail, city water has essentially bleach in it. It's not great for your microbiome. It kind of kills off some of the little critters that are supposed to be there. And so on a day like this, I'm like, all right, do I not drink water in the morning, or do I drink crummy water? And I drank crummy water. There's more to lose than there is to gain in being dehydrated versus improper hydration. So I'm going to get to the grocery store today and buy a few gallons of water so I can stop drinking that stuff. And I got tea because they had no decaf. I would have done decaf and thrown a couple pats of butter in it, but they didn't have any decaf, which bummed me out. So I've got Earl Grey tea and a couple half and halves. It's a decent breakfast. It's not a great breakfast. It's okay. If I ate sausage, it would be fun because there's plenty of sausage, but I do not. We've got a new episode today. Episode 767 is on nutrition and hydration for martial arts and martial arts training. And I hope that you will go check it out. And I'm curious if there's anything in there that you disagree with or anything that you learn about. Andrew and I had a good conversation on this. And the main subject we tackled was what, if anything, to eat before training and how people feel about that. And I mentioned the science behind digestion that we at least understand at this point and how it relates to exercise. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the whole story. There's enough individualization in this that it's worth checking out. So that episode's available in video. It's available in audio. Stacy says not meatloaf. No, I would not suggest that one eats meatloaf before training. Although, so back in the day, many of you know I was raised Jewish, had a bar mitzvah. And I think it was Tuesday nights with Hebrew school and then karate. And my mother would pick me up from Hebrew school, and we had just enough time to drive to karate. I would change in the car, and I would eat dinner in the car because otherwise, by the time I got home, I couldn't eat, or I was starving. Right? Little kids are as good at regulating. Is good at regulating hunger, and I distinctly remember her making sandwiches, the driest sandwich. She would take turkey and put it on bread, and that was it. And she was mad that I didn't like it. It's like, can we have anything on this? She probably put mayo on for herself. As a kid, I didn't like mayonnaise. But I remember doing the same thing with meatloaf, giving me a meatloaf sandwich with nothing on it. And it's not like we ate great bread when I was a kid. So, Dennis, in response to my question, the two biggest changes for me came from starting each day with a glass of water and spending a lot more time outside for the vitamin D benefits. There's so much more we can talk about later, but suffice to say, it was quite a healthy and energetic year. The lack of vitamin D, the deficiency that we have, something like 80% of Western population is vitamin D deficient. And if you dig it all into the science on vitamin D, it impacts everything. Yes, you can supplement with it. Yes, it's really cheap, but it's not the same. It's not as good as getting outside. If you think about how we lived, even just a couple hundred years ago, we were outside all the time, and our bodies are conditioned for that. Our bodies want more vitamin D. Um, there's a whole, we can argue sunscreen if you want, but sunlight is important. It is critical. It is something we all need. Stacy says one of our students showed up for a black belt test having had a good hearty meal of, oops. Yeah, how'd that go? I imagine that did not go well. So today I have to register for this conference. That doesn't start until 5. So I've got a little bit of work that I'll do, mostly some email and whatnot. And then I'm going to try to get outside, go for a walk. Last I looked, it was going to rain. We'll see. I may have to time that. And I'm probably going to take a nap because by the time I got to the room and got settled and got to bed, it was almost 10, and I'm tired. So probably take a nap because this conference is all day, 6 days straight, and I want to make sure that I'm awake. One thing I wanted to share with you. Oh, did that go away? Can I fire that up? Let's see. No, I can't do that way. Can I show you an image? No. All right. So I saw another podcaster post yesterday about. Actually, wait. Can I open this? What this? Can I do this? I can. Yes. All right. About Spotify and the Spotify Wrapped. I don't know if you know this, but if you use Spotify at the end of the year, they'll give you all kinds of fun information about songs you listen to most, artists and genres you listen to most, hours that you spent listening to music. And I find it really interesting. But this particular podcaster posted some information about essentially it was an end of year for the podcast host, like information for them. I was like, oh, cool. I didn't even know that existed. And it took me down a rabbit hole. I didn't realize there was a whole dashboard as a podcaster for Spotify. So I dug into that. And at the end, I grabbed a couple screenshots of this and thought you all might find this interesting about martial arts radio. We did 87 episodes last year. It was listened to in 58 countries. This is just on Spotify. 4,700 minutes of content, and the listener count was up 75% through the year. There was another stat or another frame that I didn't grab a shot of, and it said for almost 500 people, we were one of their top 10 podcasts. For 200 something people, we were in their top 5. And I'm assuming this is by minutes listened. And for over 100 people, we were their number 1 podcast. This is just on Spotify. That's awesome. So I suspect some of those people are here today. I appreciate you. Thank you for continuing to listen and support the show. All right, and where's Frank stuff? Frank. Frank sent over something kind of cool. And I want to shout out and thank Frank. I appreciate you, and shout out to, oh, this function is back. Yay, share this tab instead. And shout out to Josh for our theme song. All right. Yesterday, in addition to, what was it, Computer Security Day, it was also National Personal Space Day. And Frank gave a little bit of a personal intro. We had a conversation. It was probably one of the earlier conversations he had as we were becoming friends about I do not like it and do not agree with parents forcing children to hug someone. I do not think that is okay, and I think it uh, sets up some poor behavior potentially later. And so this is kind of along those lines. Everyone deserves personal space. You don't know anyone, physical contact, if you're not feeling like it, no matter your relationship with a person. National Personal Space Day was created to remind people about this simple but often forgotten truth and recognize everyone's right to decide when, how, and by whom they want to be touched. Personal space is highly variable depending on cultural practices, personal preferences, social situations, and relationships between people. Socially acceptable personal space can range from less than 90 centimeters in countries such as Argentina, Bulgaria, Peru, and Ukraine to more than 120 centimeters in Hungary, Romania, and Saudi Arabia. Different standards and expectations of personal space can lead to misunderstandings and even conflict. What most cultures have in common is the understanding that personal space boundaries need to be respected, at least in theory. In practice, however, violations of personal space boundaries are not that uncommon. Even well meaning touch can hurt people, so it is important to raise personal space awareness. National Personal Space Day was created by Give Space, operating as For the Love of Peach LLC. For the Love of Peach was founded by Carol Winter, whose mother fought colon cancer for decades. Multiple surgeries left her immune system compromised, so she had to refrain from physical contact in order to protect herself from infections. Unfortunately, some family members still hugged and kissed Winter's mom without asking first, exposing her to infections. In 2015, Winter found For the Love of Peach to educate people about the importance of social distancing. Keep in mind that this was 5 years before COVID, when social distancing wasn't something people talked about much. 4 years later, she launched National Personal Space Day to raise awareness of personal space boundaries and encourage people to be more attentive and always ask before touching someone. Winter encourages people to wear the peach symbol to signal their need for personal space. A lot of people find it easy to respect the personal boundaries of others, but struggle with asserting and protecting their own boundaries. The peach symbol communicates its wearer's need for personal space. It doesn't matter whether your need stems from having a compromised immune system, aversion to touch, or simply not feeling like being touched at this particular moment. You deserve your personal space to be respected. In terms of observation, you can share your story, uh, teach children, younger folks about the notion of personal space, and grab official merchandise at getspacepeach.com. So, I suspect that some of you have very different uh, wants and needs around personal space than others. If you know me, I got a snooze bro. I'm a hugger. I'll hug anybody pretty much anywhere, anytime. But I recognize that that is not everyone. Great example. Saw a friend, actually a friend I know through martial arts, at the grocery store Tuesday night. I've known his daughter is 17, and I've known her since she was like 9 or 10. And always like this kid. I taught her a bow form at one point, and so hug dad, and because I haven't seen daughter in a while, I wasn't like, come here. I just kind of put one arm out, and that gave her the opportunity to decide how much she was going to hug, right? Because I guessed she would be okay with it, but there's a big difference. If someone puts one arm out, you can come in for a full hug, or you can just kind of lean in, and that's more what she did. And I felt comfortable doing that because I was able to read her facial expression, and I've known her and got a good sense as to where I thought she would be. Now, on the other side, or kind of looking at it a different way, um, there's a 5-year-old that I know, that I am related to. Sometimes she wants to hug me, sometimes she doesn't. And early on, she was about 3, and I would kneel down and I would open my arms, communicating, I want a hug. And sometimes she would run over, and sometimes she wouldn't. And the times that she wouldn't, once in a once in a while, early on, Mom would say, "Go give Jeremy a hug," and I'd say, "That's okay. She doesn't have to." No kid should ever feel like they have to make physical contact with another person. What if the kid's picking up on something? What if the kid doesn't feel good? There's so many possibilities, and forcing that, I don't agree with it. I don't think it's appropriate. Stacy says, "Sometimes I want a great big hug. Others, just tip your head in my direction, please." Yeah, and there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with wanting touch or not wanting touch. Sometimes we act like once you've reached a certain threshold with someone, it has to always be that way, and it's not. Um, I remember I remember once there's a guy who used to work for me that I liked. I considered him a friend. And it was a couple of years after he had stopped working for me, and I saw him out, and I went to give him a hug, and he just stuck his hand out. It's not a big deal. He was communicating, I don't want to be hugged. And in hindsight, after I thought about it, I was like, we never did have that kind of physical relationship, and he never expressed being, he was never really a touchy guy. I should have started with a handshake, and then drawn it into a hug if that felt appropriate, right? Um, as martial artists, we have an ability, theoretically, to read people, to read their physical demeanor and how they're conducting themselves, to understand what it is about them that they are communicating non-verbally. And that should help us determine something like this. Does this person want to be touched or left alone? And it's something that I think for those who teach, I think makes a wonderful match at the idea that um, communicating, you don't have to be touched. You don't have to want to be touched. It's okay to not be touched. It's perfectly valid. So I hope you will check out episode 767 of Martial Arts Radio. It should be up everywhere at this point. It's a video episode. And in it, Andrew and I talk about nutrition and hydration. And there's some good information in there. I've got a feeling you'll enjoy it. So check it out and see if the information we give you in this episode suggests that you do some things differently. I hope you'll try them. I'm never going to say this is how you have to do things, but if there's something that you have not tried in a while, just because you tried it 20 years ago doesn't mean that trying it again isn't a good idea. I used to hate mayonnaise. I like mayonnaise now. I used to eat before class, before training. I do not. In fact, I go the opposite direction. I try to be as empty as I can, food wise. Our bodies change, our understanding changes, our needs change. And that's whether it's good or bad, it is what it is. It is how it goes. So I hope you have a fantastic day. I hope to see you back here tomorrow for Friday. And yeah, take care. Be well.